Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have just listened to that very insightful speech by the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, YB Carey. I think that indeed is very inspiring. And to put that into action, actually, I'm privileged to be able to moderate this session, because to put into action, it consists of these are the people who will literally move and make this digitalization and also digital economy really happen in real life. So the topic of this panelist today is about the role of digitalization in sustaining and accelerating economic recovery. We have 5 speakers. All the profile of the speakers, distinguished speakers, are also available through the soft copy that has been distributed to everyone, as well as the hard copy in the folder. So I am not going to go into the detail of each and every speaker's profile, to give room and time for the speakers to share their insights, share their wisdom, and also to give more room for all of us to have question and answer session with all the distinguished panelists here. Out of the 5 speakers, we have 2 of our speakers coming in via Zoom. First one being Mr. Peng that is a founder and executive chairman of Silverlake Axis. And the other speaker is our Dato Henry Goh, who is the co-founder and chief operating officer of MACROKIOSK. And with us physically today, we have on my right, our old friend, literally old friend, though we all look young enough, Mr. C.C. Puan, who is the founder, Group MD, CEO of Green Packet Berhad. And on my right is another old friend, certainly he's younger, Mr. Danny Lee, who is the chairman of PIKOM, National Tech Association of Malaysia. And on my left is, surprisingly, and not surprising, not Malaysian, even though he looks like one of us, Mr. Matthew Chen, who is the CEO of Sunline's Overseas Business Group. And I will just give the further kind of additional introduction of just 1-2 liners when each of the speakers is about to speak. All right. So I'm going to call upon, I believe, Mr. Goh and Dato Henry Goh. Both are Gohs. So let's say Gohs are coming in from Zoom. I believe they are ready, right? Yes. In this case, coming through Zoom, I would like to invite our first panelist, Mr. Peng, who is the legendary figure in Malaysia as well as in Asia, who has actually started Silverlake and make Silverlake as the first company that has achieved more than $1 billion and therefore becomes the first US dollar unicorn out of Malaysia that's listed in Singapore. The solution they provide is the full range of the banking solution, and the customers are all over Asia. So with that introduction, I'm going to invite Mr. Peng to share with us your thoughts and ideas and wisdom about the role of digitalization in sustaining and accelerating economic recovery. Mr. Goh, please.
Hello. Okay. Now, first I have to correct that Silverlake is not just banking and finance. In fact, it commits to deep digitization research. Okay, and with that, I would like to discuss about this digitization and how it affects every one of us. And first of all, to understand that, we have to ask, what is actually digitization? And number two, how that factors. Of course, most of us are interested in the economic issue. So now we need to understand what is economy. And the third thing, for any external things to affect us, we need to know who we are and what we want. And to respond to that, we need to combine these three subjects and to formalize a strategy for each and every one of ourselves, inclusive of countries. Now, finally, we must actually look at how we fare in comparative advantage and then figure out whether we need to collaborate with other people or other countries. Let me start with digitization. Digitization is actually not disruption. In fact, it is actually very orderly. Digitization is actually is a mathematical evolution of things. So we know that for thousands of years, human beings had been living in poverty until 86, when Sir Isaac Newton came up with law of motions. And even until today, we are talking about law of motions in car, we are perfecting law of motion in rockets, we are perfecting law of motion in sports. And yet, the law of motion is governed by a very simple equation, which is F equal to dm dv dt. Now, the next thing that happened was in 1862, the publication of Maxwell's law, which leads to electrification. And of course, we are still electrifying, we are still perfecting electrification, and that leads to the third revolution, which was quantum miniaturization. Now, quantum theory as mathematics is, of course, a complex world, but the main purpose is usually in the miniaturization of things. And that was published in 1926. Now, so the question is, what theory or theories governs digitization? And the answer is a cocktail of theories, and because it actually spans over everything we do. And of course, it starts from Boolean algebra and then governed and orchestrated by category theory. And recently, a very interesting publication by Martin Harrer on the regularity structures and the theory of rough paths, which actually won the Breakthrough Awards 2020. Okay, that is the summary of digitization. Is an evolution of mathematical equations. It is not all of a sudden something happened. And so don't assume, the first thing is not to assume AI was built yesterday. No, it is actually 40, 50 years of evolutions. So the more important thing is to know for the next 10, 20 years, what are the key endpoints, rather than saying what digitization can do in the forever future. Now, the key endpoint would be, of course, a lot of people have heard of artificial intelligence. And the next thing is, which most people seldom heard, is a game theoretic mathematical intelligence. And in fact, we just had a huge breakthrough in this area because this is actually extremely important because game theoretic mathematical intelligence governs artificial intelligence. And that is a very important breakthrough for Silverlake Group, which we patented in 2004. The other thing that is very important and heavily invested by the American vendors is cloud computing. But side by side, there's something nearly equivalent. But yet, since cloud is not really defined, so we really don't know whether it is cloud or not cloud, but that is digital finance and digital currencies. And of course, you have heard of things like blockchains and various digital currency techniques. But those fall under digital finance and digital currency. And finally, we talk about electric car, we talk about various automation, that is digital automations in education, healthcare, car industry, and so on and so forth. These are things that we can actually nearly sure for the next 10 to 20 years. So let's look at what is economy, and economy are well researched and first publication or established publication by Adam Smith that leads to invisible hand, division of labor. Now, the next interesting and most important theory was Warasian dynamic equilibrium that leads to demand and supply equilibrium and so on and so forth. And the third is David Ricardo's comparative advantage. And recently, the habitual economy or psychological economy, but I will sum it up as economy is a summation of habits and behaviors. Now, this few important theories combined, and if we use that to predict for the next 10 to 20 years, now, what is going to happen is the economy and digitization is going to move to more to the demand side and less of the supply side. Now, this is, of course, not an easy topic. Just this topic alone, I think it needs 1 or 2 hours lectures. Now, another thing is demand side usually needs more capitalization, and that was the reason why US is printing money and boosting up all their digital companies and dumping in huge investment, hoping for better returns for their printed money. The next thing that is obvious is that things are going to be more and more well partitioned because of digitization and because of division of labor. And fit to survive is getting even worse. And that explains why we need to know ourselves, we need to know the theory, we need to know economy, and we need to have our own strategy. Another point is economy is always about collection of habits and behaviors, therefore scale, and combining with demand side, therefore scale is extremely important, which means in terms of demand side, US and China has an advantage, but not necessarily supply side. Okay, so that explains why Silverlake is fully supply side. Because being a small country, we are not trying to be Alibaba, we are not trying to be Google, we are not trying to be many things that what people, the hypes, the so-called hypes tell us to do. Now we design our own strategy. And for last 32 years, we have gone into every area possible. In fact, we have gone into healthcare, we have gone into insurance, we have gone into education, and recently we just established a fund. And and fund management is one of the things that we are actually aggressively promoting last 1 or 2 years. So finally, we need to know how we fare in comparative advantage, because division of labor says that it is a collective effect. It is not just a single wolf. And the Gestalt effect says that the whole can be greater than the sum of parts. And that obviously is a very good reason for everyone to work with each other, provided that the whole is greater than the sum of parts. Now, since we are short of time, I will just summarize that we need to understand what is digitization, what is economy. We need to understand ourselves, and we need to understand what is our strategy and why it is good for us. And finally, the importance of collaboration, because the whole can be greater than the sum of parts. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Goh. And thanks for highlighting that this is a very important part of the introduction that I really missed out. That was about the group of the Silverlake that is so involved in the deep tech and deep tech across multiple industries that Mr. Goh has mentioned, ranging from financial services to healthcare, insurance, and so forth. All right. Thank you. Now we would like to move on to our second speaker. Second speaker certainly is another icon that all of us are very familiar with. And I always admire CC, as I normally call Mr. CC Puan, to be someone that is really like a David, because throughout his journey, you can see that he has been taking on the impossible task of bringing some of the new innovation, new technology into the marketplace in a telco, and now very much into very broad entire digital ecosystem as well. So it is a very bold, very visionary kind of move, and certainly we would like to hear from CC today, right? CC, please.
Thanks, Dato Wei, for such compliment. It's good to be here today and seeing a lot of old friends. It was very interesting always hear from Mr. Goh because he's making a lot of decision or even the future prediction or forecast based on mathematics theory. Later on, I also have my own theory that perhaps I'm going to share a little bit. Today, probably I'm going to spend about 10 minutes, running through about 6 or 7 slides, so that we can focus and probably it will be a flow of story that easier for you to understand. Just a very quick introduction. It's just like Dato Wei say, we have been around forever. We are actually in the last year of what we call the Green Packet 4.0 journey. We have been around for 20 years. I founded a company in year 2000 in Silicon Valley. That was really beginning of the internet. And right now, fast forward 20 years, we are in such a very, very unique time that I was just talking to Dr. Nikolai, also a very old friend, because I sold him my first solution when we was in Maxis, actually back in year 2003. Then continuously, because of his order, his first PO to my software on the seamless handoff from a 3G to a Wi-Fi network, and then I secure a 20 million ringgit contract from China Telecom. Then I took the company public in year 2005. And very soon, from a software and a hardware solution provider, we also participated, in really the mobile era, whereby together with Dato, we received the 4G license back in year 2007. It was also the same year that Green Packet, our market cap, had reached the first 1 billion ringgit. 3 billion ringgit. At the time, the exchange rate was still about $1 US to $3. So actually, as a public company back in 2007, we were the first tech unicorn. And then, of course, after invest in the 4G mobile operator, we disposed we let go the majority stake to Telecom Malaysia in year 2015, and whereby actually that's how I got my first job, and I thought it would be my last job after joining TM as a CEO of WeBe for about 3 years. So before I retired actually from TM, we started our reinvention again, whereby we started to invest in the fintech and also AI and IoT via another company, G3 Global, that is right now also being given a task actually to develop the largest AI park city out of 300 acres of land in Bukit Jalil, undertaken by G3. So a very quick introduction, of our last year 20 years journey, and perhaps you can guess, how old we are. We just try to look young. And thank you again, Dr. Nikolai, for your first order. So we are talking about, the new normal, right? So we are actually in a very, very specific, because if you are looking at really the real 21st century is only starting next year. But in year 2020, the universe has shown us a very, very clear sign that things will be very, very different, right? So that's why you see this have never happened, it's unprecedented in the human history. And at the same time, there's also very, very unique geopolitical shift with US and China, whereby one is the current superpower, the only superpower in the world, and the other one is the up and rising superpower. But if you're looking at it, right, if history can tell the future, if you just look back at the history 180 years ago, right? So why I'm saying that in really the Chinese calendar, my theory, I derive a lot of theory from the king of literature, I Ching. I'm reading I Ching in English right now, try to understand how Western, in terms of this, Chinese literature have been around actually probably about 4,000 to 5,000 years. It had clearly also specified, if you know the 5 elements of the Chinese feng shui, the East is what we call in 5 elements made up of wood. So that's why you see China actually, the way even the Chinese, taking our meal, even our chopstick is made from wood. Our building is always made from wood. And the West in the 5 elements is made up of metal, right? So that's why you see that your cutlery, your silverware, your forks is all made of metal, right? And the building in the West is all made up of rocks. So we see this shift, right? What we are talking about, in I Ching, every 12 years, 60 years, 180 years, you always see massive changes, right? And massive changes, I'm talking about history is repeating itself, because 180 years ago, if you are looking at Great Britain history, is talking about trade war as well, whereby Great Britain tried to sell opium to one of the most populous dynasty, Qing dynasty then, right? So, and what the Qing dynasty do, literally, it had closed the door, right? We still remember probably on all those that understand Chinese, the Lin Zexu, there was one general, literally burned all the opium and closed all the trade with Great Britain. So we see the same thing, right? Trump just recovered. President Trump just recovered from his COVID, and he started this trade war by closing the door of the US and try to also build a wall next to Mexico. So it's also the same trend whereby we are also seeing the superpower is shifting, right, from the metal dominant to the wood dominant. So we talk about the East and West economic decoupling probably over the last 10 years, right? But we are seeing, I myself, my own reading is that year 2020 is a clear signal of the East and West economic decoupling. And another thing that we see is also the massive convergence, right, of technology. So these are the very three big trends that's happening at the same time. And I really wanted to talk about, I think, Peter Diamandis, okay, the founder of Singularity University, he's predicting the next 1 century is a combination of the last 20,000 years combined, because of the acceleration and massive adoption of what I call the exponential technologies. So this is my favorite A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So if I'm looking at, we are really in the current era with a perfect convergence, and this is also unprecedented in mankind before, because all this exponential technology is happening at the same time at this current era, right? So from the artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud, big data, Internet of Everything, and plus 5G, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G is happening at the same time. So that's why in the next 1 century, we are going to experience the total evolution of advancement in our life, in our technology, economy for the last 20,000 years. So with that, with what I'm sharing just now, you know, what the impact on the pandemic, I also wanted to share with you my personal reading. What I've been experiencing, if I'm looking at the worldwide stock market crash, you know, business got impacted. But if I'm looking at, you know, just very short 6 months after the first announcement, or even our MCO, everywhere the stock market is all-time high. Dow Jones is exactly only probably a few hundred points lower than its previous peak. And I believe that it will shoot off before it dropped. And my own reading and prediction again, that I believe the US stock market and economy will not be able to sustain, and highly likely it will be a major correction that will be driven by the drop in US dollar because of the undisciplined, unlimited quantitative easing. So the only way for all the business to evolve, to transform, is really through the embrace of technology and digitalization. So I hope all the friends here, right, if I'm sharing with you some of the things that I see, some of the things that if Mr. Goh is derived from his mathematic formula, I derive a lot of my reading from the king of literature, the I Ching, if some of you will be interested to take a look. So what is Green Packet doing, right? So we are also seeing that is the perfect timing if you are in the right business. So we are really start, you know, expanding in all the possible area of the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'm also very mindful that recently we just launched, last month we just had a exclusive joint venture agreement with Tencent Cloud, whereby we are forming a joint venture to bring Tencent Cloud into Malaysia. And also we also launched a startup and SMEs acceleration or accelerator called Keeper X. So we are here to help you, the SME, to embrace the new normal. The new normal are the 3 major trends that I share to help your business right? To embrace the technology, to transform yourself through the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and digitalization. So with that, I want to leave all the audience with the same, what I call, this is our company, massive transformative purpose. Every human must strive with life-improving digital innovation. As a conclusion, and I hope all of us will together embrace digitalization, embrace ABCDE, so that we can emerge from the very, very challenging the next 9 months to 9 to 12 months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our friend, Mr. C.C. Puan. I think that certainly will facilitate very easy recall. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I certainly can remember that. And perhaps I would like to continue until the Z, but I think let's stay at G, right? Thank you very much. Moving on, next, I would like to invite another good friend, Mr. Danny Lee, who's a PIKOM chairman. And I think I just want to add to introduce that. Danny has been very active in the national service as well. Apart from his years of experience in the industry, currently he's also the advisor for the Communication and Multimedia Consultative Committee. He's one of the advisors there and working directly with the Minister of Communication and Multimedia. He's also a member of the National Science Council and the Public Safety and Security Consultative Council. All right, we'd like to hear your wisdom. Danny, please.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me thank KSI Strategy Institute as well as Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur for giving PIKOM an opportunity. And here as a chairman of PIKOM, I represent in terms of our input on this particular topic. Now, we don't have mathematics like Mr. Goh. We also do not have the literature that C.C. Puan has spoken about. But what we do have are the input and the information provided to us from the industry itself, which mainly came from our members. Now, our members comprises of technology providers as well as even the demand side, which are the end users, mainly the larger conglomerates and company CIOs, and lately also include the small and medium enterprises, IT managers or IT heads. And most recently, we also have included a group of end users which are very much focused into cyber security, which we call CISOs. Now, digitalization is not new. First of all, I want to clarify, I think there's a difference between the word digitization and digitalization. So I want to focus much on digitalization today. It's not a new topic to PIKOM because like what YBKG has mentioned, right? Since the birth of Multimedia Super Corridor, we have been working on digitalization with different ways of calling it digital era, you know, stepping into a new digital world. You've seen events and topics being discussed that way. And the buzzword today, digitalization, happens or was because of COVID-19. It's just accelerated the initiative or the requirement of digitalization in this country or even globally. Now, but during the COVID situation, I just want to mention this because it's very recent in our mind, is that a lot of businesses were not ready to be to operate, especially during a movement control order lockdown. All right, and a lot of them scrambled to get business done. And you can see that a lot of companies suddenly decide that, hey, let's try to sell things online, go on an online platform and start trying to rejuvenate the business that way. But we feel that that's just a very quick fix, you know, trying to get your product online. But important to understand, digitalization is not a quick fix. It's a long-term investment and a long-term process. where you have to delve into your back-end operations, you have to look into your production capability, as well as production quality as well. Now, this to say is that business owners, whether they are large organizations or SMEs, have to understand what are the pain points today. Pain points today are probably not just how to sell, but also how to improve in terms of production quality, production process, speed to market, and also in terms of the operational process that can help to manage the entirety of the business. So it's an ecosystem within itself. I will come to a larger ecosystem later. Now, this is just an example. I'll give an example, for instance, like in the printing industry world. Today, if you all may not know, printers can now print directly on fabrics, all right? The old way of doing it was that you have to get it done in an analog way, and you have to order a long run or certain minimum quantity of yardage before it can go to print. Now, today, printing can be done digitally. It can be print on a short run basis and on demand basis. Now, what does it do for businesses in Malaysia? Malaysia is very well known for our batiks, right? Scarves, headscarf, batiks, and stuff like that. And these are things that cannot be sold in volume. The reason is because design and trend change every now and then. So digital print can actually help them to actually implement a more a product of a high quality product on the go in the market, where they can produce high quality products for the consumer. So this is just one example. Now, moving forward, because we don't have much time, I'm also going to talk about the pitfalls. Pitfalls, I would always categorize it as controllable and uncontrollable. Just one example on controllable pitfalls is in terms of cyber security threats, all right? It's important, investment in security against cyber attacks, cyber threats are important because not only data, but also monetary are possible to go under threat as you go digitalization in your organization. Now, I once hear a gentleman spoke about investment in cybersecurity. He says that investment in cybersecurity is like investing in a troop of army, all right? You enlist the army, you give them guns, you give them ammunition, and hoping that one day, or hoping that you will never get to use them, right? So basically, it's the same thing in cyber security investment to protect your company's assets, hoping that you do not need to use them, all right? If you don't do that and there are attacks that happen, then it's too late. So that's one of pitfall in an area where organization is controllable depending on what level of security you want to provide. Now, the next are uncontrollable factors. Some of you may have seen the press release made by PIKOM, especially during the MCO period. Right? We have spoken a lot about why IT industry or IT support and services are not an essential sector during MCO. If this country is moving into a digital economy or digitalization as a key focus over the next 5 to 10 years, IT support and services should be an essential sector. This is extremely important. I personally have met up with YBKJ, also Dato Saifuddin of MCMC, and also had a meeting with YB Saha, Deputy Minister 2 of MOF, to discuss this topic, right? It is important. We've seen neighboring countries that has really emphasized on IT as one of the essential service during their lockdown. Now, if Malaysia were to move forward with the digital economy, now this has to be addressed. Now, the reason why they're not looking at that, we do not know, because it all depends on how the government categorize IT industry. But we all know telco is essential, but why not IT? Because they work hand in hand. So these are uncontrollable factors that organizations will face as they implement or as they move into investment into digitalization. Now, for a lot of organizations, whether large or small, we all know that today, as YBKJ has mentioned, 700 million ringgit was put into various funds. They are available with MDEC, they are available with MTDC, MIDA, even MOSTI, and also SME Corp as well. So obviously there are criteria where each company has to qualify before they are being granted. Some are full grants, some are matching grants. So different grants are being provided very differently. And obviously, MPC, Malaysia Productivity Corporation, there is also a huge initiative in terms of driving digitalization, especially with the SMEs. And they have this title called Go Big with Digital. And they have various initiatives being put in place to drive that. And it falls under the digital productivity nexus of MPC. And that nexus is championed by Dato, none other than Dato himself. All right. Okay, so that's all I need to share today. I will share today. Thank you very much for your time.
Wow, thank you, Danny. I think the key point that I picked up is this, not just about looking for the opportunity to really make such a huge leap forward, but more important or equally important will be to look at the potential pitfalls. Some of them are potentially very unexpected. So we need to be prepared for that, right? Thank you, Danny, for that sharing. And of course, you have also highlighted about go big with the digital, right? Right, now moving forward, now we are going to zoom in again. And I was also reminded that I have not introduced myself. I'm the moderator for this session. My name is Chuan Beng. I've been in this digital or ICT industry in the last 30 years. Certainly have seen from the early days, the formation of MSC until where we are today. Very much now doing more of the tech area.
Maybe I can do a better introduction because it's too humble. Yeah, I know Dato for probably 16 years. So actually, he was the founder of another great homegrown technology company, Red Tone. So he was the red color, I was the green color at the time when we were really in the Nasdaq. And Dato Wei was also the shareholder of Green Packet on a pre-IPO round. So he also make a lot of money. So he's also not only a very, very good technology business person and also a very, very good investor. So if you ask him to put money, you know, he will make sure your valuation will go up like 5 times within the same year. And he was also the chairman of PIKOM, and he was also the commissioner for MCMC commission. So very reputable, both the technologies, entrepreneur and investor. And perhaps right now he put a lot of his time with family because we are also, you know, family friend, and the kids are good friend, and a lot on Wushu, and also doing a lot of social and national service.
Wow. Thank you so much. Wow. Okay, I just have to say thank you again. All right. So that was a quick introduction. And I must also compliment, you know, this is a blended session, hybrid session. So we have Zoom, we use a virtual mean as well. And this come about because of digital leadership. So when Tan Sri Michael invited me to also participate in KSI, one of the main area of so-called involvement is to look at what will be the digital future of KSI. All right, there are a lot of digital future, and in fact, for digital leadership to take place, like for example, to bring this session to a blended session, there is a risk there. So sometimes the technology may not work as well. There's some of the pitfall. Sometimes, you know, digital means now you see it, now you don't, right? 0 and 1. But it is part and parcel of learning, and we are going to get a lot more out of it together. So digital leadership demonstrated by Tan Sri Michael Yeo. Thank you for this. Goh, Dr. Henry Goh is certainly one that is a very inspiring story of how he co-founded and grew MACROKIOSK. That is certainly another very interesting icon of a country. So I think just to kind of highlight one point, that he has been able to not only grow his company, but also has been working and engaging himself with this, what they call it, Magic Accelerator Program and so forth. So he's certainly among the group here, a younger representative of the digital leader, and we'd like to hear from Dato Henry Goh.
Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you for having me today. And of course, yeah, as mentioned, this is really a hybrid event. This is the first time calling from Zoom. All the other previous times I'm presenting myself there. But anyway, just to try it out, to have my sharing through this way, which is quite nice actually, sitting in the comfort of my room. Anyway, yeah, just to talk about the topic for the day, I believe that, of course, digitalization in a way is not something that is happening now, neither is something that is, I would say, caused by the COVID itself. Digitalization has always been something that has been coming along, as we can see, and it's always been part of the evolution of how we as normal human beings is going to live, and how businesses are going to work in this environment going forward. It's nothing different from previously, where you have things like industrialization and of course computerization that happens not very long ago, and of course now digitalization itself. But nevertheless, of course, each evolution, there's always what we call some kind of restrictions or some kind of pushback of getting people to adopt it. But however, of course, fortunately or unfortunately, I believe COVID has pushed this digitalization needs a bit faster than we naturally would want it to be. However, of course, while COVID brings the need to have digitalization, it does also bring a lot of conservation or conservative mindset to a lot of companies and to people because of the financial impact that it brings. In the sense that, whether should I then spend or invest into digitalization? Should I move into this area, or should I then now conserve and see what's in the future? So I think that is really the biggest barrier now in terms of digitalization. Although COVID itself has proved to see that digitalization is a need to many of the SMEs, especially in developing countries like ours. So in that sense that, but nevertheless, I think whatever is it, digitalization is needed. And I think while conservation or conservative approach is needed, but we definitely we cannot ignore the need to have our SMEs and of course our business to be digitalized as we trying to grow along the way. Let's make it this way. I think digitalization is just like industrialization. It does not have, it's not a really exceptional change in the way we want our business to function. There's not going to be a significant change in exactly how our lifestyle is supposed to be. But whereas I would say it's a good improvement. So it's not like something that's going to be a day and night different in terms of digitalization and not digitalizing. But nevertheless, is that it's always an environment where digitalization helps us to improve our life in things that we do. It's just like industrialization where we can produce things in very small volume, but then with industrialization we can produce things at a much quicker speed. We can then using machineries basically to help us to develop bigger, better, and faster in that era. And digitalization is exactly having the same approach as well, in sense of where should we approach in terms of adopting digitalization. So just a couple of areas to carry forward what I'm trying to speak here this morning. Some of the key areas that's really available in our business. I think every businessman or every single SMEs, we are looking at a few metrics of trying to get our business right. For example, we would like to reach out to customers. I think we try to acquire customers. And I think normal way of doing acquisition It's probably through flyers and probably through word of mouth and what's not. But through digitalization, we still do acquisition, but then the acquisition can be improved through things like, for example, able to have your advertising or your advertisement reach the correct audience at the correct time. And that is really something that digitalization can help you to do, for example. We would also like to, obviously, in our environment, that we would like to know how well are our employees doing. I mean, are they contributing? Are they meeting the KPIs and what's not? But through digitalization, you can actually obtain the necessary data. You can monitor them better. And as the saying goes, if things that can be measured, it can be improved. And I think digitalization gives you that flexibility. So there are many of such examples. So what it means here in the sense that you are actually improving your current business using digitalization. It's not something that is exactly different from what you are trying to do now. And it's just to become better. And of course, in terms of COVID environment, it has moved the shift a little bit more. For example, you have to work at home. How do you then prepare your company to have operations running with your employees working at home, for example? So things like you probably need cloud computing so that your data can be available everywhere, anywhere, anytime. You probably need to have things like even things like accounting software and stuff like that. All needs to be online, needs to be on the cloud, and things like that. Is really something a bit more shift in that sense. But nevertheless, the whole idea about digitalization is to improve the way your business function, not changing it. So while many people are taking digitalization in a very literal sense to say that you are going to be seeing a very, very big different future, you're going to be exactly changing it. And that's such a big jargon of expectation, gives a lot of negative environment to a lot of SMEs that would then think, am I ready? Am I going to do this jump? Even if I jump, is it going to be the correct jump? I think that's really things like that that gets people very, very excited, but also get a lot of SMEs afraid in terms of whether I'm going to do this or not. But let's take it in a very approach environment. I think that's the most important thing. So there are a lot of pitfalls that I do see in terms of SMEs are that what they are looking at in the sense that they do not have a proper approach in terms of digitalization. I think that's really the biggest pitfall. So what they do is that probably when someone say this is good, they just do this, and that is good, they just do that. But then when you look at the whole environment, it doesn't jive with the business, neither that is going to be a very complete solution towards digitalizing the business. So I think they can come and talk to many companies, probably like Green Packet, Silverlake, or even MACROKIOSK per se. We do offer different kind of solutions, but definitely with the same idea of trying to digitalize company in a very well-approached environment, and do it in a way that it do not scare SMEs as well. So I think that's the key part. So let's take an approach environment in terms of SMEs, how they're going to be digitalizing their business, firstly, and secondly, do not be afraid in adopting digitalization because you are still operating the same way as you're operating. It's just that it's more efficient. It's just that it's more effective, and of course, the results that you can see are definitely going to be much better as well. So I think that's really the part that I want to bring to the table. So yeah, maybe we can have more discussion over the Q&A, but that's what I want to share. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato Henry Goh. So very reassuring that digitalization is not to kind of change the business or something that you cannot recognize, but it is actually to certainly perform the same business function, but perform much better with that. So that will actually help to give that sense of certainty to a lot of companies who are not there yet. All right, thank you. And let's move on to the fifth speaker, a very special speaker, because he's the only non-Malaysian here. So I would just like to kind of highlight a little bit more. Matthew Chen is the Group CEO of Sunline's overseas business group. Sunline is known to be the biggest core banking solution provider in China. And Matthew himself, as we understand, has like 20 years of experience in all the different aspects of the online banking risk management solution in the financial services industry. He is also a very regular speaker at the Money 2020's Global FinTech Summits. So we are very privileged that Sunline has chosen Malaysia as a global base, and therefore he's here. And fortunately, he's stranded here because of the COVID-19. Then we are able to get him to share his wisdom. Right, Matthew, please.
Dato, I keep saying I'm non-Malaysian, but I'd like to think that at least I'm half Malaysian. I look and talk no different from any of you. This is actually my third year based in this beautiful country. And, you know, first of all, thanks for KSI for inviting me to this stage. And thanks, thanks Michael for inviting me. And I was actually born and bred in Shanghai. So I'm from China originally. I received my tertiary education in Australia. So I spent quite a few years in Australia. Now based in Malaysia. Our majority of international staff outside of China is actually based in this beautiful country. So obviously today talking about how we can accelerate the economic recovery, right? Right in the middle of this pandemic situation. So maybe perhaps I can share a bit of experience from, you know, what are some of the lessons learned from China, right? Some people actually say that, you know, how China actually started this digital transformation journey. Some people actually like to say that it's actually due to an event which is very similar to what we're experiencing right now globally. You know, 17 years ago, the SARS hit China. And I mean, if you look at Jack Ma's journey, right, he set up his company, Alibaba, in 2000, not really taking off. It's actually not until 2003, 2002, you know, when the SARS hit China. Because if you look at, you know, people talking about behavioral economics, people talking about behavioral financials, you know, one of the most difficult things for people to change is actually our human behaviors. It's probably psychologically is the most difficult things to change. And when SARS hit China 17 years ago, you know, people has no choice but to be forced to go online, right? Starting from e-commerce actually, you know, even all the, you know, granny, grandpa was forced to shop everything online. This is actually how the journey started. Then, you know, from e-commerce, you know, venturing to third-party payment, you know, micro savings, micro loans, and eroding to the banking business, right? So then the regular you know, starting all this so on digital. I mean, Malaysia is also, you know, central bank is trying to issue some digital banking license, right? So maybe, you know, maybe if you look at it, if you're talking about digital inclusion, I mean, China's done a good job in lifting people. 800 million, I checked, right? For the past few decades, at least 800 million people lift out of poverty. And you have to give it to that, you know, a centerpiece of that is actually technology, right? Digitization is actually the key, right? But then you're trying to relate to this country, right? This beautiful country, obviously very, very different from China, right? In terms of the scale, we only have 30 something millions of population. China is a huge, you know, homogeneous country, right? But there are lessons to be learned. See, if you're comparing this country to China, there are, yes, you know, this COVID-19 is forcing the like of, you know, Grab, you know, a lot of people ordering, like including myself. I'm alone in Malaysia. My daily life actually live on Grab, right? The amount of merchants, you know, went on Grab. So definitely we are going a lot more digital, but still there are also a lot more silos. I mean, you look at it, right? So there are a lot of silos, you know, with such a small population country, such as Malaysia. Yes, even if we go digitals, but there are a lot of silos, right? So how are you going to connect these silos? So for example, my daily life, I came here actually via Grab, right? So you go Grab, you sip a coffee in Starbucks, you pay for coffee. So there is something that you can actually trace the money. Money is actually the key. Money is probably the key to connect people's daily life. You know, our daily life maybe post-COVID will be all digital in a many different cycles, right? Doesn't matter, Grab, e-commerce, Shopee, Lazada, you go Starbucks. How many e-money licenses in this country alone? Last time I checked, 42, right? It's really a bit overkill, 42 e-money licenses for 32 million population, right? So the problem, this country's problem is, yeah, even if we are fully digitalized, but there are too many silos. So the connection is the key. So how are you going to connect? Like I said, follow the money. Follow the money. Because it doesn't matter what you do, you touch money. You pay, right? You pay, so touch the money. So that's why if you look at, one of the very important lessons learned in China in terms of digitization is banks, the banks, financial institutions actually play a very, very key role in the digital inclusion. That is one of the biggest learns, right? So you follow the money. So what is financial inclusion? Financial inclusion actually using technology such as digitalization to lower the bar, right? To make the cost of financial products and services readily available to the underserved market. So what is the underserved market in Malaysia? The B40, right? You call it the bottom 40. And also there's also a very large segment of SMEs, even micro SMEs, right, in this country. So how are you going to use digitization technology to lower the financial product and services and connect and to tap into these people's fingertips? That's probably is the key for financial inclusion. Perhaps I'd like to share a quite interesting example, something we actually have launched with one of the internet giants in China at the end of 2018. You heard of Alibaba, you probably heard of the other internet giant. It's called Tencent, right? So they specialize in gaming, social media, and all that. There are a lot of banks, I'm not talking about the larger banks, right? There are a lot of smaller banks in China. I mean, China is a huge country, right? Some very small rural cooperative credit unions. I'm talking about some little banks all the way to the Xinjiang province, which is the largest Muslim population in China, sharing the border with Russia, all the way to the Hainan Island, right? These smaller little guys are called the little underdogs, financial institutions. They might not have the deep pocket, the budget, the IT resources, and also the experience to do digital transformation, to launch an internal digital transformation, a challenging bank within the bank. They don't have that, right? They don't have the people that have money, but yet they would like to bend backwards to serve all the underserved market, the poorer people, right? Underserved, underbanked individuals as well as SMEs. But they found it very difficult to tap into that ecosystem. So what we did together with Tencent, we launched a platform, I gave it an English name called Sunline at the end of 2018, trying to help this, you obviously heard of Tencent has a super app called WeChat, right? So it truly commands more than 1 billion active users in China. So all those little banks trying to tap into the ecosystem, which they can't, right? So we build a platform in the middle. So we like to call it a B2B to C model to help this, so far today, last time I checked, but we have about 28 smaller banks and 23 fintech companies. So we lump them together, help them to tap into WeChat through WeChat, which has an open platform called Mini Program. So really help them to weave their smart saving products and micro loans product into people's fingertips. So that's what we do, right? So some stats I'd like to share with you, in this year, right? Obviously it's all starting in China, right? You look at some of the stats in Q1 at the peak of the pandemic situation in China. We managed to issue 175 million CNY loans from these 28 banks to help people that are going through hardships, right? The individuals, the restaurant chef that has lost a job because people lock at home, the micro SME have working capital issues. So 175 million loans were issued from these 28 banks in Q1, in Q1 alone, which is at the peak of the COVID-19 situation. And then 343 million of smart saving products also were issued by these 28 financial institutions on this platform. And in Q2, that number actually got double. 300 million loans were issued and almost 600 million of smart saving products were issued from these 51, right, 28 banks and 23 fintech companies. So what is the key, right? How do we actually do that? So CC Pound introduced the ABCDEFG, right? So this actually utilize the latest technology to do what? What is the key to connect? When I say money, right? But how you can actually match money with the people that actually in need? The key connection piece is obviously data. Right? Obviously, it's data. So because the bank only command a very small segment of the financial data, but in order to actually know these people well, you need a lot more unstructured external data, right? So this is where the technology such as artificial intelligence and big data can in action. It's really helping the banks to understand the end consumers. You know, doesn't matter they are the underserved individuals as well as micro SMEs better, so that the banks, you know, these 28 banks be able to match their product offerings to different people with different risk profiles, right? So eKYC, right? Everyone's, you know, all the countries, all the central banks talking about eKYC. eKYC is not about just know who you are. You know, all the face recognition, the OCRs, the liveness test, the bio, all those things just to help the bank to know I'm Matthew Chen. But doesn't tell the bank that I have the willingness as well as the capacity to pay a loan, right? So the data, there's a lot more data. I'll give you an example. Some of the data is actually coming from the government. For example, the High Court in China at the end of 2014, they passed a mandate to making sure that all the litigation data is publicly available to anyone that's in need. What does that mean? So China, I don't know whether you know, there's over 5,000 courts, you know, from the High Court all the way to the county level. And then, you know, now in China, the minute any company, any SMEs get sued by another company, the full cycle of the litigation data is published through different court systems. Depends on which court they've been taken to be sued at. Right. So this data is obviously very, very financially relevant, very risk relevant to be understand that company. You know, another one, for example, is people talking about public opinions, right? So let's say that these ABC companies borrow a loan from this bank, but this ABC company might be related to EFG company. You know, you'll be able to get that data from a company registrar. And the EFG company, actually, there's a news today on a very credible e-media saying that EFG company is got a fine by the local environmental authority because they pollute the local river. So again, you know, it's non-financial, right? Non-structured financial, but very, very relevant. So if you be able to bundle this data from the government, some from the government ministry, some from the fintech companies such as Tencent, and bundle that with the bank's internal financial data, that really can help the bank to understand the end customer much better and to marry the product and service they like to offer with different segment of people with different profile. That's really how we do that, right? And then coming back to, you know, this country again, right? So, you know, we don't have a super app such as WeChat, as I mentioned, we're many silos, right? So I think that the key recipes for a platform such as this to work, you know, we're talking about how, you know, during the COVID and post-COVID to help the SMEs to accelerate the economic recovery. I think there are two key recipes. One is the trade, right? One is definitely the trade. The other one is cross-border because, you know, we don't have the sheer size, right? So how we can have a similar platform in Malaysia to foster trade, especially SMEs, micro SMEs, and then in order to get a size by cross-border is the key, right? So I like to call it, in order for that kind of platform to work, we probably need I call it an ecology trifecta. It takes three parties to work. Definitely you need government involved because a lot of data need to come from different ministry of government, right? And obviously some data definitely from the fintech companies. Together you work with the data that within the financial institutions. So these three group of data together to serve the underserved market, that will be the key, right? So to wrap it up, I like to call it an ecology trifecta. It takes three parties for this platform to work in a country such as Malaysia. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing this technology, as well as, you know, you have given an example of how China could disburse 300 million loans in like 1 quarter. I think this massive disbursement of a loan, it could be like smaller loan, but certainly it's very helpful. Thanks for that example and also your suggestion. Now, we have just a few more minutes left. And I like to suggest that we do a different style right now to crank up the energy a little bit before we end the session. It is in the form of rapid fire question and answer. Everyone, there are 3 questions that I have prepared, and each of the speakers are given up to 30 seconds, and we just move on, all right? The next question will follow, and then it's rapid fire style, all right? It may result in some crossfire as well, but that's okay. Okay, the first question will be, in this topic about digitalization and for the recovery, what will be the role of leadership? And here, the leadership doesn't mean one person, that's Prime Minister. It means everyone in every organization, be it public or private sector, all right? We can imagine like first 3 layers. So, and around the country, there are about 1 million people in the leadership position. What will be the role of leadership in digitalization and the path towards recovery? Maybe we could start with Mr. Gore, and we continue like the sequence.
Yeah, the leadership is all about direction. And so as you know, I'm going to back up with mathematics. So how directions go down all the way to the lowest level. In fact, I mentioned about Martin Harris' publication of theory of rough path and theory of regularity structures, which won this year's breakthrough award, which is the highest award in mathematics. And that is the mechanism that how direction goes down to the bottommost level. Thank you.
Next, CC, please.
I think leadership is absolutely important. I think leadership, the vision, and bringing your team along, you probably have to be able to predict what is going to happen in the next, because things are changing so fast, right? What is going to happen in the next 6 to 9 months or the year? My take is that the worst have yet to come. And it can be very, very bad before things get better. So the next 9 months is absolutely, absolutely challenging. So prepare your team, prepare your people to overcome this challenge that never seen in mankind.
Next, then.
Quick one. Fundamentally, to look back at big problem in the mind. So basically, we need to go back to fundamental what a good leader is all about. So basically, before even talking about digitalization, leader will always have, like what CC said, vision. But to achieve that vision, we have to understand, a leader has to understand where they are today. So basically, it falls back to an organization where you are today. Does your organization in certain areas or in certain departments require digitalization to solve your pain points? A lot of the time, the organization faces challenges are where they don't know where they are today and don't know where they want to go. So again, it's an ecosystem, and a good leader will need to be able to identify that pain point and then move forward.
Okay, thank you. And Dato Henry Goh.
Yes, of course. I think as mentioned by the rest of the members is that yes, leadership is very important because digitalization is a direction and it's a concept that needs leadership to see the result. Because I've seen it before where there are leaders where they actually please so and so go and look into this, and he just sat back and it's just like, go and set up the computer and get it done. It's not like that it cannot work like that if you want digitalization to be successful in SMEs or in any corporations, for example. Yeah. So leadership is critically very important for the leaders to know itself how it works and how to make it work actually.
Okay, Matthew, please.
So when people talking about digitization, I think definitely leadership is important, but leadership is not only important from a company point of view, from a bank point of view, from a fintech company point of view, because digitization actually is very much a top-down approach. I'm talking about leadership of the country. Just now I mentioned about the availability of the data, the monetization of data. It takes, all the way up to the government to that kind of leadership vision. I think in the opening speech I hear that this country, the leaders really share that vision. The importance of the digitization in helping to recover the economy. So leadership is actually, to me, is very much a top-down approach, right?
Wow, thank you. I think looks like maybe we have time for one last rapid fire kind of question and answer, right? It is about, now that we have leadership has given the strategy, has given the direction, so therefore everyone needs to move, right? So the next question will be to build or to buy, because the digitalization, do you build or do you buy, right? So again, starting from Mr. Gore, please.
Well, this is a tough question because when you look at the world supply, so it's a supply side problem. When you look at the world supply, there are so many intelligent people across the world, in USA, in China, everywhere in this world. Now, so to build or buy, it's not as simple as just look at Malaysia and say, wow, we have the brightest guy here. And therefore, is always dictated by your purpose, because not necessarily everything must be so-called the best, which is actually very difficult to define. If you look at it, mathematics is already 2,500 years old. So it's the oldest product that human being had built, and it's still being used widely across economy, sciences, medical sciences, and everything, in fact, everything that in our life. So this is the oldest product, yet it is used in every part of our life. Now, that describes how complicated, whether it is to buy or is to acquire. And that, of course, if it cannot be decided by mathematics, then one simple way is by common sense. Now, so it's either you really dig deep into it, and like I said, you must set a direction. It's just like a boat, a carrier. You have to know where you want to go. So you have to set a direction. Then all parts of the boats, you have to decide how you equip them. And it is not a simple issue, because what kind of seas you're going through, what kind of opponents you're going to face, is going to be very complicated ideas. But of course, you can settle it through, like for example, John Nash, non-cooperative game theory. But if everything, of course, all these are very difficult subjects. But then there is one easy way, it's called common sense. Really, really be honest to yourself and use your common sense.
Thank you, Mr. Go. CC Puan, please.
My take is very clear: to buy. If we're looking at digitalization, what would be the impact and effect from digitalization is really what we call the democratization and also demonetization. So we are looking at previously, all of us buy Microsoft Windows, buy Microsoft Office, right? When we buy, but right now, when we are looking at what Microsoft have done, literally they're going through a fire transformation, turning them into a cloud company, right? So a lot of digital solution that either you wanted to build or you wanted to buy previously was very, very expensive. But after the move to the cloud, that's why cloud is another very, very important, whereby it will help a lot of your investment on digitalization. Either you are buying or you are building or buying will be available on demand at a fraction of the cost compared to what happened previously. So that would be so much more solution, software, digitalization tool will be ready there on the cloud for you to buy at a fraction of the cost and on demand, on time.
I have a very different perspective. To buy or to build actually depends on the pool of talent that we can retain in Malaysia. in country at whatever level, whether it's government level, company level, GLC level, or even SME level, right? The decision to buy or to build all depends whether we have the right talent, right skill set of people. That's why government is now really promoting upskilling, reskilling. When you talk about the new trend of AI, robotics, big data, Internet of Things, and also 5G. Unfortunately, we are losing our talent to our neighboring countries because our entry-level pay grade is not as good as compared to our neighboring countries. So we are facing these challenges that we have. So the decision whether to buy or build is largely depends on how knowledgeable we are in terms of talent of IT to manage.
Can I add on to support my theory?
Yes.
Okay.
20 seconds, please.
Yeah. If I'm looking at to build, right, I'm just saying that it will take too long and forever. We are living at exactly an accelerated VUCA world, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So in order for us to really face with the challenge, buy the ready, on demand, low cost, demonetize.
Wow, thank you. So from rapid fire to crossfire, which is interesting. All right. Now, Dato Henry, go, please.
Okay, just a quick one. I think, yes, it's a very difficult position to choose. But however, of course, it depends which perspective you're looking at, whether from the government perspective, company perspective, or even an IT company perspective as a supplier. For me, is that if you are SMEs, I think buy is good because that's not where your core business is. But I think if we are an IT company, I also believe is that you should choose your niche. Means you only produce technology and build technologies that's niche to you, but not like doing everything and anything. And for a country perspective, I think you should then look at build should be the priority in terms of maybe in terms of technology transfer and what's not, because the technology changes very, very quickly, and there's no ability, as no one company will be able to actually build an R&D every single technology and to have every single technology. So you need to find your niche, and from there you have to collaborate with other companies that probably have other better technologies that you do. So yeah, it really depends which perspective you're looking at for this question. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And lastly, Matthew.
Yeah. Obviously from the technology point of view, I would very much like people to buy from us, right? But I think we have to differentiate the difference between technology and data. I like to make a very strong distinction between the two. Technology-wise, I echo CC's point. There are, all the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There are a lot of latest technology out there. Doesn't matter. You can buy from China, buy from America. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. But technology, at the end of the day, is just a toolkit. It's just a toolkit, right? So how you utilize the toolkit to monetize the data, that's a different story. The data should always sit in this country, right? So that's again, neither should it be Chinese or American. It should be Malaysian, right? So just whatever technology you like to build, so that fast track, accelerate. I can stand on shoulders, giant shoulders, so to speak. But to monetize data and let the data be, monetized and beneficial to this nation. That will be my 2 cents worth.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite all of you to give a big round of applause to all the panelists here. Thank you very much, Mr. Goh, CC Puan, Danny, Dato Henry, and also Matthew for this wonderful session. Very insightful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.